There's a simple reason why you, me, and every other man avoids approaching women. But by the end of this video, mate, you will know exactly how to change that. And if this is your first time on the channel, my name is Oliver. I'm a coach, a writer, and a retreat facilitator. And I'm here to help men, you and I, everyone else become confident and independent. Let me tell you something that happened to me yesterday that actually inspired me making this video for you today. I was walking back from the gym and I see a beautiful woman. She's walking, she's dressed in a really cool sort of way. She looks like she works at some vintage shop or something. And in my head I'm thinking, fuck, there is actually no reason why I should not approach her. She seems approachable, she looks friendly. We're kind of walking in the same direction. There's no reason for me not to. If I don't approach this woman, I'm probably a coward. So, as fate would have it, we end up at the traffic lights together, ready to cross the street together. And the light goes green, the green man shows up, and we start walking together, and then out of nowhere, I get the courage to just say, "Excuse me, can I tell you something?" And she seems quite receptive. She smiles and says, "Yeah." And I say, "I really like the way you're dressed." And her face goes red. She smiles and looks a bit awkward and says, "Thank you." All so far so good, right? But then it turns really awkward because we're kind of walking in the same direction. She is walking a bit ahead of me. She doesn't quite know whether I want her to stop and talk to her or not. Because I've not approached anyone in a while, I'm quite awkward about it, a bit rusty. So I didn't set the frame strong enough, basically. So she kind of just felt a bit awkward. I was like, "Oh, okay, have a good day." And I was like, "Yep, you too." And it was just, we both felt this kind of really awkward energy in the air. And that's how the story ended. She just walked off. Now, here's the thing. Previously, I'm talking a year or two ago, I know that my inner critic would have gotten really loud about that. My inner critic would have been saying, "Oh, man, that was awkward. Why did you make it so awkward? Why are you approaching women in the street? Why are you bothering women in the street? God, this is so pathetic. Why would you even do that?" My inner critic would have sounded like that. But the thing is, mate, this time, the voice in my head was dead silent. And here's why. You see, over the years, mate, I've worked with, my body count is over 100 plus men at this point, working with them in their confidence, in their relationships, in their marriages, even at work. And there's one common thread that holds pretty much all of these men back from their full authentic expression, from being fully confident, relaxed, and in the moment. And that is what I call the prison of perfectionism. It's a prison that has one main rule. And that main rule is you will not take action unless you can guarantee that everything will go smoothly. Now, you might think that it's just single men who deal with this problem, who can't approach women, etc. Not the case at all. Men who have been in long-term relationships, even marriages for 15, 20 years, struggle with the prison of perfectionism. They're stuck in there as well, because initiating sex sometimes with your wife of 10, 20 years can sometimes be just as vulnerable as approaching a complete stranger. But here's why the prison of perfectionism completely sabotages you in your life. You're expecting perfection in your relationships to have a smooth, problem-free life, when the reality of relationships and life as a whole is that they are inherently, by design, messy, chaotic, and unpredictable. And when you try to force reality into this perfect box, you are denying reality. It is absolutely no wonder then why many men wake up 20 years later and they think about all the lost opportunities that came as a result of waiting for that perfect time. So how do we, as men, break out of this prison of perfectionism? I want to share with you a kind of framework that helped me. I want you to imagine that you are literally locked in an actual prison of perfectionism. You're in a big cage with rusty ass bars and there's a giant padlock on the gate that you can't escape. And on that padlock, there are 3 keyholes. Now I want you to imagine me on the other side of the bars. I'm a previous inmate, but I escaped. And what I'm doing right now, mate, and I'll do in a second, is I'm going to hand you a ring with 3 keys on it. And each of these keys has something written on it that you need to read, and you need to listen to me before you actually implement this and start to unlock the gate. Imagine taking this set of keys and looking at the first key, and on this key is written one word, and that word is rejection. We avoid approaching women, we avoid putting ourselves out there in our relationships authentically because we are afraid of the pain of rejection. But here's the thing about that, mate. Here's the thing we need to understand. And you'll realize when I say this, if you think about it for a moment, you'll realize that I'm absolutely right. The pain of rejection does not come from the external world. 99% of the pain of rejection comes from that voice in our own heads, punishing us for what we have supposedly done wrong. But can you imagine if that voice in your head was kinder to you? Can you imagine a reality where no matter what you did, the voice in your head treated you with love, kindness, empathy, and respect? That voice in your head was like a big brother on your own side, encouraging you, seeking out your best interests. Rejection probably wouldn't sting nearly as much, would it? Let's be honest. So, to reduce the pain and therefore the fear of rejection, we need to do one thing. We need to make the voice in our heads kinder. And how do we do that? We need to make practicing self-compassion a daily habit. Start by noticing the voice in your head that's critical, set a boundary with it, and practice whenever you notice the voice in your head start getting mean to you, practice setting a boundary, saying, no, I'm not going to let you do that, and then reframe it and start speaking to yourself in a kinder way. That's it. It's as simple as that. Practice it on repeat and watch your life change. The first key is in the lock. What about the second key? You pick up the second key, you look at it, what's written on that? A simple phrase. That phrase says, values before validation. Let me explain to you what that means. If you measure your worth as a person solely by your approval that you get from other people, you will be trapped by their reactions to you. If the only thing you value in your relationships is approval, that is the equivalent, I want you to imagine, of being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with all the waves and all the storms, but you're in a rubber dinghy in a storm. And let's say the waves are other people's opinions. Well, in that dinghy, if you're in a dinghy, you're kind of going to get tossed around by the waves, maybe even capsize. It's going to be pure chaos. We don't want a dinghy, do we? We want to be in a yacht. And how do we build a yacht? We build it by forming and crafting and strengthening an identity based on our values instead of validation. For example, here's a quote that really helps me when I'm wondering whether to approach a woman or not, as well as many other situations. Rejection is better than regret. You see, one of my deepest values is living a good life, living a life where I don't regret it in 10, 20 years. So when I'm faced with the opportunity to approach a woman, to avoid it or not, I say to myself, rejection is better than regret, because in that moment, I'm either choosing a life where I hide from my desires and my feelings, and I regret it in 10 years, or I'm choosing rejection instead. It's not about getting her to like me. It's about me living in alignment with my own values. That's the most important thing. By becoming a value-driven, strong man, you suddenly find yourself in a yacht, and the waves that would have flipped the dinghy over, you don't even notice. It becomes easier to take risks even though perfection isn't guaranteed. Now you've got the second key in the lock. What about the third key? On the third key, I want you to pick it up, and not written, carved into that key is the word curiosity. When you are too nervous to approach a woman, here's what you're thinking. What if I look weird? What if I say the wrong thing? What if she rejects me? What if I come across as a creep? What if other people see me? Notice something about all these thoughts. They're all centered around you and what you feel about yourself and your little ego. But what if, instead of being preoccupied with yourself, you could be just as easily or just as strongly preoccupied with curiosity about the other person? This is a skill like any other. It's like, I call it building your curiosity muscle. You have to practice doing this. Let's say in a moment of sort of hesitation, when you're wondering whether to approach a woman, you say to yourself, I wonder what kind of person she is. I wonder what she's interested in. I wonder where she's from. I wonder what her passions are. This is not so you can create like an interview list of questions to ask her, by the way. A lot of people make that mistake. It's more so you can build a curiosity-based mindset. Now, I need to be honest. Earlier in the video, I lied to you. I lied to you. I'm a filthy liar. Here's why. I told you earlier that the voice in my head was deadly quiet. And that's not true. When I approached that woman and it went awkward, my voice in my head did actually say something. And here's what it said. Well, that was a bit awkward. Anyway, what are we going to eat now? If you want to overcome the prison of perfectionism, click the link in the description below, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.